I still call myself a recovered academic. If you don't learn anything, and you literally become a vegetable.
Did you think that your career path beyond that point would remain within academia?
No, I think always part of me and or even my research, and it is always how do I apply? Data you cannot work by itself without technology, but you cannot make any sense of the data if you are not working on a business problem. You've got to work with different people with different backgrounds. If you want to go fast, go by yourself, run by yourself. If you want to go far, go together.
Catherine Lopes, a distinguished leader in the field of data and analytics. Catherine sits on the board of the Environment Protection Agency Victoria and contributes her vast experience to its Risk Audit Committee and Technology Working Group. With over 25 years as an experienced Chief Data and Analytics Officer, Catherine's strategic vision has driven significant advancements across various sectors, including financial services and utilities. Her work is not only recognised within industry circles, being one of the Global 100 Data Visionaries, but also in academia, as evidenced by her groundbreaking Ph.D. research at Monash University, which earned her the award of the Best Thesis in 2005. Beyond her professional achievements, Catherine is deeply committed to community building, notably through Ada's Tribe, an initiative that she founded to empower women in the fields of analytics, data, and AI. So, Catherine, thank you for joining me today. We've actually had an association for a little while, and I've definitely been a long time admirer of your work that you do in data. I also heard recently this kind of metaphor that a career is not so much a ladder anymore, but like a jungle gym. And when I was doing the research on yourself ahead of today, I think you probably you epitomise that metaphor. So I'm really interested in just exploring kind of how your careers come together and how you've kind of followed some of the paths that you have followed. What I did see from the research is that you've lived and worked and studied all around the world. The furthest I could go back in that research is that you went to, is it Shandong University in China back in the late 90s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. I was being kind. That's it. Is that where you kind of grew up as a child? Is that where kind of home and life originated for you?
Yes. And I think that's more associated with I spend my time doing my bachelor's study.
Yep.
Yeah, and but I would say I spent quite a bit of time in Beijing and Shanghai.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. And I saw that when you went to university, you studied management science. I guess I was interested, what motivated you to follow that area of study?
Well, this is a really interesting story to land in that space.
Yeah.
So my mom, her major is in mathematics and engineering. Yep. And my dad, he is a business person at marketing and pharmaceutical.
Yep.
So there is, they wanted me to pursue one or the other as influence.
Okay.
Right. And so there is, but I had my true, that perhaps you call passion at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to become an artist.
To be a what, sorry?
Artist.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there, but somehow I was good at, study in mathematics and the physics, and then so I ended up in the science major. And then to pursue art, I can do something more artistic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to apply for the architecture as my major.
Yes, yeah, okay.
But of course, and it didn't happen because there is naturally sit into the school in the engineering school. And so my mom, she, is a civil engineer, and she said, perhaps no, you're not going to become, I will not support you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and because the life being a female in the civil engineer or you are a real architect, it was really, really hard. For her. So she said, well, do something else. Yeah. And so naturally my dad will say, oh, you want to do finance, accounting, and because you can use the, numbers, and say, I didn't really want to do marketing, finance, accounting.
Yeah.
So at that time, and basically there was a new major. So it's called management science, but it's literally is a combination of computer science, mathematics, and management.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. So some people can pursue on the side as accounting or marketing, and then so that it was a natural fit. So I said, well, you cannot really. I didn't go to either one of the three, so that was a degree. Then I went there, so I was able. Yeah.
So that was almost. I mean, obviously, your career's kind of largely been within the data space. That's almost like a precursor to data analytics in many ways, if I've understood that correctly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was not by design, and then totally, literally, is by a teenager try to, disobey their parents' advice.
Yeah.
And so that was, and I think that's the absolutely set up a foundation for me. And so there is a combination. I was in the management school. And but we share the courses together with computer science. Yeah. So we share the dorm. It's a computer science student as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a combination of technology and management, and plus the information management. So that is a combination business. You have.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And did you at that point have any kind of idea of what career you were hoping to follow once you finished at university?
No. No, I haven't really thought about it, but I got a lot of influence from my family, so especially from my mom's side at that time. Yeah. So a lot of academics. Mm-hmm. So one thing, I think there were two type of part-time job I was doing. Yeah. One is selling, doing, like knock the door selling the cosmetics.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing the, the marketing. Yeah. And then the second part is tutoring. So that was kind of the two type of part-time job I was doing.
So that was whilst you were studying?
Yeah.
So that's two pretty tough audiences, isn't it? Knocking someone's door and trying to sell them cosmetics, makeup.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think I utilized every single connection that my mom has with their, with so-called auntie and the grandmas. Social group.
But still, that takes a lot of resilience. And then on the flip side, to be a teacher, again, it's another kind of audience, isn't it, that you're catering to and trying to grab their attention. Again, it's interesting. I just wonder how those early influences help shape you, what you are today, in terms of your ability to engage with people.
I think that absolutely it built a foundation for me. And I read a lot of things where people will say, your original family. Right, so from your upbringing and also your influence from your original family, quite often they will build the first 30 years.
Yep.
And so after the 30s, and then so there is, you actually started building your career, family, yourself, and by studying and learning more. But I think absolutely that is built a foundation from the influence from both sides of my family.
Yep, and it sounds like your mum was quite a big influence.
Oh, huge, big influence for sure. Yeah, she's still,
Yeah, I'm sure. I saw after you graduated, you maybe spent some time in the US, or at least you were working for a US company.
Correct. Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, that's always a very interesting. So it's an association for the manufacturer, and I was just at expo, the Korea Expo. Yeah. I was in Beijing, Korea Expo. And I wanted to do, actually was not necessary, I wanted to do something with the skills, which is I was good at English at that time, I think my English is quite good compared to other engineer students, and still to more like, many of the computer science background students. And in the meantime, I'm interested to utilize the skill which is I have in doing the information management and database administrative, and plus to do with business. So there I was looking around and sending my CV, and so there was a gentleman behind that later became my boss.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so I don't remember how many of the CVs I have turned it in.
Yeah.
I don't remember I received many calls, but he was looking at the back, and so I studied a little bit, understand what they do, and I say I want to give myself a chance.
Yeah.
And I just approached the gentleman directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's perhaps the only one person replied to me at the expo, and immediately became
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you kind of put yourself out there, you backed yourself, a bit of courage, and stepped up and presented yourself.
I think that is actually absolutely their way of you don't know. And so it's okay to get rejection. I think now I think back, right? Yeah. And then I look at, how dare you approach somebody who was even not in front the store, yeah. Right? He was sitting behind, but I just waved and I say, I want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that role, did you actually move overseas to the US to work?
No, I haven't. So I was working in Beijing and Shanghai at that time,
yeah,
and
okay.
So I was about to move, but didn't happen before I landed in Australia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but it was still essentially an American company?
Correct.
So did you notice any kind of cultural differences compared to what you sort of grown up with in Chinese culture? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is put aside about the I would say I don't think I think it's just not fair for me to make the judgment at that time and say, oh, this is a big difference between the American company and then to a typical Chinese company, because I have not worked a full time at a Chinese company. I can only say what my parents, right? So my mom was working as an institution of this engineering institution. My dad worked at a pharmaceutical company. Yeah. I can only tell the difference is by what I observed and also what I experienced. So at that time was really, really early, and so all these foreign companies, which is American company. Yeah. And so there is, it's very typical, I think, my understanding, and the difference was very superficial. So there is, you work faster, for sure. And and you don't have the lunchtime break that much. Yeah. And in the meantime, but I would say had a lot of interaction. Yeah. I had a lot of interaction, and also the boss, which is I had, and it gave me a lot of freedom for me to explore different area.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I think.
So how long were you in that organization?
Oh wow, that was like. No, I think a year or so. Okay. Yeah.
But in that time, you got to, as you say, maybe try different things across the business. What kind of did you enjoy the most, or what do you remember? What stood out for you? Oh,
I remember was, I think I remember is this is very interesting. I haven't really. This is absolutely I have not thought about it that role because it's so long time ago. If I think about it, what I enjoy the most is the way what I did was establish the membership program and using computer database. So that's very technical. Yeah. In the meantime, because we organize a big expos. Yeah. So for all the the American different companies, and in Shanghai, and so how we run and we organize different the local companies to meet. I think that is a part where two part. Yeah. Yeah. There are like you see the real. You see how you use technology or use data and to make efficient, and you understand how many members do we have, what area do they work or specialty, and in the meantime, how do we connect that and to the local and to actually get to the China market. Yeah. Yeah. That was great, yeah.
And that's pretty early exposure to that kind of thought process of putting those, because not many companies were thinking about data in that way at that time, or thinking about their customers in that way.
I guess not. Yes. Yeah.
And after that, you moved to Australia.
Yes.
To study a master's in business systems at Monash. Why Australia? Why did you move to Australia?
Do I have to tell this story?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Well, it is. I was I was on the way to US at that time,
Yeah.
and then to have a half scholarship. And I think if I have secured a full scholarship, perhaps I would end up in Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a half scholarship, and but I did have actually which is quite a few of my connections who in Beijing, and so they all happen to established here.
Yeah.
So that I think naturally you get more confidence, and so you know somebody here.
Yeah.
So then they always said the good thing about Australia, and say yes. So I come over.
Great. Had you been to Australia before?
No, I have not. No, I have not.
So I'm just fascinated. Well, when you first got off the plane at Melbourne Airport, what did you think? What was the first thing you thought?
Oh, wow. What the first thing what I thought? I haven't really thought about much. I don't think I have. I think maybe I already interacted with a lot of people who I work with from US. Yeah. And I have already read a lot of books about the life in Australia. So I'm a very bookish. Yeah. Yeah. So, even when you I had my first child at that time, not that time, later, and so I read books about how to raise your children, right? Yeah. And so that's I think it was more what to do when I get there. Yeah. And I don't like to look back that much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And certainly there are a lot of unknown, but I don't think at that time was much scary at all. No. Yeah. Yeah.
You're too young to be scared at that point?
I guess I have grown up. Yeah. Not literally, I don't really have a house, which is apartment or anywhere, a physical dwelling, which is I call home. Yeah. In my memory, no.
You're right.
Yeah. So like I have moved 4 primary schools.
Yeah, okay.
So I moved all over the place. So that's with even, traveled to many different places in China.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So very transient anyway through your childhood.
Yes.
So moving was kind of almost part of what you do.
I guess it didn't become it didn't become a norm, but it is a part of the DNA. Yeah. Yeah, and from family, as I mentioned, my mom's side, they're academics, so they have moved different from city to city. 2 of my grandparents are professors, so from university to another university.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to a PhD in, I think I read, data mining, machine learning, and computer science.
Yes.
What excited you about that area that made you kind of commit so much time and dedication to study?
Neural networks.
Okay.
At that time, actually, if I think back, was a natural progression about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to learn. And also, again, back to the influence, which, so there is grew up from academic background, the family. So while I was doing the technology, information technology, and I was already teaching the database, data warehouse, and also doing a lot of work on BI, business intelligence visualization. And so if you look at the data space, and I'm being very technical now, and as in technology, computer science, software, and then you programming, and you have your data and database and data warehouse, and you utilize the data. So the next step, which is how we're going to actually use the algorithm to tell the story and to predict. Yep. So that I was fascinated after we took a subject from my supervisor, the neural network, that was really early, and before around 2000.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So 2000. So that because at that time, you don't really have the interaction with all this now easy access AI and online course outside a university.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, my study, and also I was working in the university, so that would give me the access, and I was fascinated with that subject. And also I naturally really like to take on another challenge. And plus, at that time, there was another reason, actually, in addition to the subject, which is I'm really interested in. And it was a set time series, and plus the machine learning and neural network. But the other reason is, if you want to become an academic, you have to have a PhD degree.
Yes.
And so that's almost like say, hey, look, that is, if I want to become an academic in the future, and I need to get a degree, PhD degree as well. And also the subject and also the work, which is I'm really interested in and not available anywhere else.
Yeah, okay.
So that was my motivation. And I dedicated my time. I think that's be honest, and then use my mom's comments. And then she said, that's the only time I really studied. Yeah. She said, you haven't really put much time studying at all, your entire, from your bachelor to your master degree. That's the time I studied.
Yeah, right. It's motivational. Yeah.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you think that your career path beyond that point would remain within academia?
No.
No?
No.
No.
Yeah, I know it from early on, although I was telling myself and I say, I like to teach. Mm-hmm. So I like to teach and I like to do research. But part of me, and always say, I liked the real world applied.
Yeah.
As you can see, and from early on, and I like to say something which is, if I can use this piece of technology, or I can get insights from the data or storytelling, and how I'm going to transfer that to it. Is there a real person to buy this, product, or can I make any change?
Yeah.
From this message?
So that was your kind of transition then from academia, because I saw that you joined Emmbr.
That's right.
Insurance.
Yes.
So how did you find that transition into the commercial world?
I think it actually was not that hard.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah, it was not that hard, because I still call myself a recovered academic. Yeah. And although I was so committed to do this part of research, and which is time series classroom and using machine learning.
Yeah.
And but I think always part of me, and or even my research, and it is always how do I apply? So that's when I got to the opportunity to work in AAMI. Yep. There was a centralized function. We work with the marketing team, and we work with the claim team. We work with the customer service team, yep. And we also work with the pricing team. Okay. So a lot of problems, a lot of, so we also use the data. So we also need to use the technology. So yep. That was a natural fit. And I made a lot of good connections, and a lot of my friends, now became, part of my friendship group. Yeah. And it was bounded at that time. And so I remember the title they gave me, they called me Dr. Girly. And I was like, no, why do you call me that? Yeah. Well, you said, because you came from a different type of group. Because most of them actually, they started their career from call center.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't start, I came from the academic background, but we share a lot of common interests, and we work really hard together.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because it kind of shows the different career paths to that point, that sometimes it's being entrenched in the business and understanding the way the business operates and the commerciality of the business. And then you've come from a different perspective, which is from kind of studying the theoretical concepts and being able to put them together. Ultimately, you get the kind of outcome you're trying to get to.
Oh, absolutely. So I think at that time, and I think it is part of the build again. I think that's the foundation. Really, every single step. I think every single whatever you do, and if you look back, and you say something where maybe you didn't enjoy that time, or if you enjoyed the working in that environment is good, even you didn't enjoy it, and so what you have done is you can learn something from there. And which is I absolutely saw something which is later on in my career I was doing, or I am still doing, is you got to work with different people from with different background.
Yes.
And also you cannot really do it just in isolation by looking at the data, say, I have this piece of technology will solve the problem. There is a business problem.
Yep.
And the business problem caused by human interaction.
Yes.
And so that's the part where I can see, many or quite a few of my friends, they all have some basic, the degrees of, related to either marketing or somewhere. And although they came from a different career path, but so we were able to share and leverage our skills. That's early on we call teamwork, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. You made a couple of interesting statements there. You said that you love to learn, and you also said you love to teach.
Yes.
And I saw through your resume that through that time in your life, you were also a guest lecturer, or worked as a lecturer at both University of Melbourne and also at La Trobe.
Yeah.
And I think that was over about 4 years or something like that. And it kind of made me think the best way to learn is to teach, often they say.
Yes.
So I was just curious, was that part of your motivator to kind of continue with the teaching side? Was it your kind of quest to keep developing and learning, or what kind of joy did you get from that experience?
So I would say the first, I'm being selfish, and I say I like to learn things.
Yeah.
Well, learn things that you absorb from others.
Yeah.
And so whether from the books or from people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I quite often, I think I was being too harsh to many of my team members. And I said, well, if you don't learn anything, and you literally become a vegetable. Yeah. So there is like, oh my goodness, why are you saying that? I said, well, we learn, so that's what I call myself a selfish in one way, but I want to learn. And after you learn, and how do you validate, actually, you really learn it. Mm-hmm. And also I do have another part of I think people get high. I have the helper's high. I enjoy helper's high, which by teaching.
Yeah.
And I think that is, again, back to my original family, which is I learned a lot. And by making mistakes, but I learned a lot from my uncles and my mom and everyone. They're willing to share, to teach.
Yeah.
So that, and also by teaching, and you see, you can test how well you learned.
Yes, right.
And you cannot teach, and unless you know it.
Yeah.
And so that's the part which is, I think that is reinforced learning. Now that's what the AI is doing, right?
Yes, it is.
And so you constantly get feedback.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, teaching has become part of me.
Yes, interesting. I think you're right. I think if you attempt to teach something to somebody, you quickly learn the gaps in your own knowledge or capability.
Yes.
Whereas maybe without trying to express it to somebody else, it's hard to know how much is stuck and how much you've kind of thought about that topic. Yes, that's interesting. It's also interesting the kind of altruistic influence of your upbringing, yes. Of giving to others and teaching others. That's obviously quite innate in you as well, that you've carried through. I saw after this, you actually, it looked like you returned to working for a US company.
Yes.
SAS or SAS?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you pronounce it as the letters or the pronunciation. In North Carolina. So did you relocate to North Carolina?
Yes.
You did. You finally got to America.
Yes.
Yeah. And you picked North Carolina. And you spent 5 years. I don't really know SAS. So what do they do, and what were you up to working for them?
So actually, at that time, as a family, me and my husband, we relocated together.
Okay.
Yeah. So my husband is from America.
Okay.
Although this is true, and I think there are a couple of opportunities before actually I decided to work for Amy, AAMI,
Yeah.
and people can tell,
Yeah.
you can tell which period people who worked at AAMI or Amy.
Okay,
And so I had an opportunity to work in US, and but I think I just fell in love, and I do view Australia as my home.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so that is naturally I decided not to move to US to pursue my career.
Yeah.
And I stayed in Australia. I think after, at any stage, your career is not a pure career move, and it's a combination of a family and a career together.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, my husband is American, and after being here for a little while, he really wanted to go back to US.
Yeah.
So SAS is a wonderful company.
Yeah.
And then so especially, so there are people who work in the headquarters,
Yeah.
and then so they are like a beautiful campus. So it's a software development and for statistical software, and it was awarded for best employer at the time, and before Google. So that was really a good fit for both of us, and we relocated there.
I can imagine. So you've grown up in China. You've then spent some time, a significant amount of time in Australia, and then you've gone to America.
Yes.
How did that experience shape you of moving to a different culture?
Oh, and so I have to again. I have to quote my mom's. Quote my mom's comments on the culture.
Yeah.
So she commented that actually she said you were never truly classic or typical Chinese culture per se. Yeah. So I grew up with my aunt and then so my uncle and who were working in the consulate and internationally, and I had a lot of Western influence and also exposure. So a lot of things are not really, foreign to me.
Yeah.
And plus, we're by reading and experience. So the culture shock, I don't think that was so obvious to me.
Yeah.
And but still, I do know what is my heritage, right?
Yes.
So then, but I think from my another side where it says we read a lot of books. We understand so different culture and read different religion. So then you will say and not only one thing, and so that's why when I came to Australia, quickly adapted to Australian culture.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not totally Aussie,
Yeah.
right? And only my son was born here, and he's a true Aussie by birth.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and so I think when we moved to US at that time, I already had a lot of since young, early 20s, and I already had a lot of colleagues that work with Americans, and so that was
and
not.
of course, your husband's American.
Correct.
So you kind of got that influence. It's not a surprise necessarily.
Yes, I would say that is to be honest, and then that is multicultural. So it's a multicultural, like even my family still, my husband is American, but he was born in Brazil.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and my daughter was born in US, and my son was born in Australia.
Yeah.
And I was born in China.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what do your children identify as in terms of their nationality, or do they... I was talking about this actually with Kendra, about being a global citizen. Moving around, and I think she actually said she feels her children probably identify as being global citizens. Would you say that's probably the same for you?
I have to say that yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there is of me. I would call myself, and I'm a Chinese, but I'm Australian.
Yeah.
And I do consider myself as extended family of American family.
Yep.
We do have a lot of influence, and now we also have South American influence as well, right? And so that is, I think, this is a global citizens for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So after 5 years in North Carolina, you sounds like you maybe dragged your husband kicking and screaming back to Australia.
Yes.
You joined ANZ.
Correct.
It is I think principal data scientist, senior manager in data analytics. So I was going to ask what was kind of going on at ANZ at that time, because I'd imagine you'd have had a multitude of opportunities with your experience and everything you've done. So what kind of drew you to ANZ specifically at that time?
Okay, so here is again is a combination. I think this time will be I will not quantify the move, but it is a combination of a career move and with a family move.
Okay.
So well, career-wise, and I have worked in academic, right, and being a researcher and also teaching and also work in the industry in multiple places. Then in industry, I worked as a consultant and also work as R&D, so build software, right? So there's through all different part of my career, which is I explored and also I worked really hard. I would say I was a workaholic, and try to learn as much as possible. Then I would say to a stage where I think at that time I had a midlife. I would not crisis. I think more like a midlife of your work you want to do.
Yeah.
And then so there, and also there is where family, where is home. So I had a calling at that time.
Okay.
Of my career is at that time I want to become focused on leadership roles.
Yeah.
And so from a simple individual contributor, and I collect enough of skills and experience, which is I wanted to contribute to do more of leading team, to build a function.
Okay.
So at that time, and also to somewhere which is leading potentially, and there is a leading the way, pave the way in a area which is they happen to be data science.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, and so that's how I came to I was here holiday visiting my parents. Yeah, and so there is secure role.
You got
Yes.
a job at ANZ.
Yes.
Yeah. That happens to everyone.
Yes.
So that's interesting because I my assumption when I looked at your background, your resume, was that there was a lot going on in banking at that time, particularly in data. It was probably one of the more cutting edge.
Yes.
Or maybe not cutting edge, but it was really applying data to understand more about the business and how it worked. So I assumed part of the appeal to the opportunity was that you were going to kind of get to test things with some good budgets.
Yes.
And really build some capability. But it's interesting that you saw at that point the opportunity to move into leadership. Did leadership come naturally to you?
I will say yes and no.
Okay. Why yes? Let's start with the yes.
So leadership is defined by different people in different ways. So even myself over the years and then being a leader, and then so being a leader, and you don't have to lead people, right? You don't have to have the title. You don't have to have the role of managing 20 to 50 people. So you can be a leader in different way. So I think in that way, yes, was naturally to me, and I like to influence, I like to teach, and I like to help other people, and I also like to see the change.
Yep.
And so that's and no, in a way, I think it is again so I have grown my career in a very technical, in many ways, it's very technical. The work or the contribution, the value I brought to the role, to the organization was very technical. And so quite often that kind of, contribution, it works well with individual as being an individual contributor. So I felt quite comfortable, to be honest.
Yeah.
But was not enough. So that's why I think, look, at that time, I realized that I want to bring the collective of technical as individual contributor, because I think I played different type of individual contributors. Yeah. Now, if I can bring into a leadership role, I can see different angle, different type of people. And also then I can build a function.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's how my view of leadership.
Yeah, that's great. I saw after you left there and said you actually went to PwC.
Yes.
And
briefly. Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of tech leaders spend some time in consulting, particularly in probably some of the bigger firms. And it seems to be a path that maybe helps to shape them commercially, or from maybe a client-facing side, or around the solutions. I was just interested what you kind of took away from your time working at PwC.
So my time working at PwC, I know, was about strategy building.
Yeah.
So actually, there was a motivation there is, the transfer from individual contributors or small team leader, then to NZ built the function of advanced analytics, and within that space of absolutely there was like an internal hub.
Yeah.
And so we work with risk team, we work with small business banking, we work with institutional banking, and also we work within the technology, and we utilize the data platform, or we try to build the data platform, and about how we're going to organize the data. So that is a function.
Yes.
And so, but when after the 2 years journey, we built a team, and I realized one thing is, we really, in order to take the whole organization to move further and to move forward, especially in the area which is nobody knows exactly what it is. For example, data science at that time.
Yeah.
So you really need to build a strategy.
Yeah.
And so then I started working on how to build a strategy, and even convert my teach myself, and also work. I had a lot of connections who were in the consulting industry, and so there you become a strategist, and so that is what the motivation. So I want to build for multiple companies and help multiple organizations. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So again, I'm just thinking back through the last few steps you've taken there in your career that you've described. Those moves are very mindful in terms of how you wanted to develop personally, and kind of shape yourself, whether you were crafting that as you went, and how mindful that was. But it's really interesting that each role is kind of built you as a character. It shaped you as the kind of person you are today. And I saw that after PwC, you founded Slay Group.
Actually, I went to AGL.
Well, this was my question. So this is where the jungle gym comes in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was doing the research. This is great. Then I kind of got to this period in your life, and I was like, this goes crazy now.
Yeah.
Because there's Slay Group, there's AGL, there's ME-Bank, there's OpsDo.
Yes. And Ada's
Tribe.
Yes.
And I was like, God, you like to put a lot on your plate at once. And I was just thinking, so let's talk about that period. Broadly, because I don't know how to classify it into any kind of sensible order. So what was going on?
So I really enjoyed the time at AGL after PwC.
Yeah.
So there is, I think I would call is I clarified a lot of questions while I was working at PwC and worked for NAB and at Telstra.
Yeah.
So you were able to say in data space, let's broadly say data analytics and the cloud. In all different organizations, so what challenges do they have?
Yeah.
And so I got a chance to work at AGL. So I transferred back from consulting to in-house.
Got it.
And so that was the way of there. I think at that time, literally, I took kind of 2 roles, and during the day, runs the BAU.
Yeah.
So runs the BAU, you have to you got to have this big team, and you will have all different programs working. And in the meantime, at that time, that AGL was doing a big organizational transformation.
Yes.
So, and I put my hands up, and which is also I would call one of my previous bosses, and so I would see him. I call him my sponsor. So he recognized, and this is an opportunity. Would you be interested in doing this and lead this? So then I said, yes, I will. So I utilized the skills, which is actually the assets or the skills of being a strategist, and so work at nighttime.
Yeah.
with another consulting group as well.
Yeah.
And to build, so there was a lacking in data governance and also a lacking in the data science and machine learning, and especially for renewable energy. So that was, that was the two functions, and I put a proposal to establish, and then build a strategy. And during the day, you manage the data engineer and also the cloud migration and also the basic, information management.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
great.
and so that was a fantastic experience.
I can imagine it was a pretty busy experience. How did you kind of find work-life balance whilst you were doing all that?
I will have to tell you that now I'm quoting my daughter and my sons and say, no, Mom, we didn't have you around at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think that was a crazy period.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there, as I ran BU during the day, and working on the strategy, and writing the proposals, and getting all the initiatives, and also the reorg going on at night.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you, after leaving AGO, I think you did go to Emmbr. Is that right?
Yeah.
And again, what was actually interesting when I was looking at this is it seemed that the places where you kind of landed in those roles, you were basically going in, developing the strategy, the framework, and then almost handing that off. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but it looked like then handed it off to somebody else to execute. But it looked like your passion was coming in, seeing what the problem was, shaping it, aligning it to the business objectives, and then kind of going, right, now you have your data plan.
And the true answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe not
Not quite
100%, not
that.
quite simplified as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, I agree. And I think this maybe from my record, and people call track record, and they say you like to build. I said, yes, I am a builder. Yep. Yes, I like to build a strategy because there I do, I think I can leverage a lot of, the lesson I learned.
Yep.
Like including from US and including from different, so you play in this space and you have say, there my connection, and I have never been too far away from the, advanced into the space in academic.
Yep.
I still I know what's the algorithm, I know what is the new advanced techniques going on, and also work in the industry. Yep. So I like to build a strategy and to build. But in the meantime, one thing I miss from this, this quite a few places is I built a team I wanted to stay long.
Yeah, okay.
And so, but, so there, I think if you look at the nature of, now you look at the data statistically, and so my role quite often sits at that time in not many Australian companies have the Chief Data Analytics Officer.
Yeah.
No, not that role, not that title at that time, not many. And if you look at even across US and Europe, and then that's roles, the average tenure is about, 1 year to 2 years, no longer than that. Yeah. So I happen to be, this is naturally happened to me as well. Yeah, okay. So that you build this, and not necessarily is my choice want to move out, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And then,
and I think that's an interesting one, because I think data can be quite fickle in business. I think there's a lot of investment and interest in data, but not necessarily the depth of understanding of how tough it is to organise that data, shape the data, and then kind of use it for the predictive value that most organisations want before they're prepared to build the strategy to underpin it.
Yes, absolutely. So that I have seen so many. Yeah, I have seen so many, because as I always say, data is, you can say, I quite often put myself into the space where I'm a matchmaker, because I'm working in data and analytics, and between a pure technologist and between the pure business. I don't like to label people, although I know in the data mining or this machine learning, and you do need to work with a label and to train your data, but to train your model. And so that if we just simply or oversimplify, there is a group of technology people, and there is a business. So often I land myself and found myself in between.
Yeah.
So that's how we actually, data, you cannot work by itself without technology.
Yes.
right? So there doesn't matter. Even Excel, you're still using a piece of technology. And but you cannot make any sense of the data if you are not working on a business problem.
Yep.
I'm talking about the in the organization, right? Yep. And of course, you can use data to analyze people's emotion and also to do a piece of research. So, but in corporate and in any of the, especially private sector, it's a business model. It's business driven. So that's why data is quite hard space to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's got very high expectations. And actually, I remember, this is before COVID, maybe 5 years ago, I met with David Gillespie when he was at Alinta Energy. We were talking about data, and I may have said this before, but he said the trouble with data is everyone wants it to look like a lasagna, but it looks like a spaghetti bolognese.
That's right.
And that metaphor's always stuck with me whenever I think about data.
Yes.
But everyone wants the perfect lasagna.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's almost very, very difficult to achieve.
Yes.
In a quick time anyway. Hey, I want to ask about Ada's Tribe.
Yes.
Because around that time is when you founded that as well. And,
yes.
I mean, tell me more about Ada's Tribe. What's the kind of purpose and focus?
Well, the history of Ada's Tribe is I came back in 2016, and I remember the joke of there was one of the, so if you look it online, that's called Data Dame. So in Melbourne has one of the largest meetup group called Data Science Meetup Group.
Yeah.
And a big shout out to Fulfill who organized this big meetup group. So 2016, I was sitting in this panel discussion, and I was pretty much once a year, and it's a female as female leading.
Yeah.
And so there people ask me, especially in data science, and I was recruiting for at the ANZ at the time, 2016. They asked me, what's the percentage of female in your data science team or at the ANZ at that time? I said 100%. People laugh at me. I said, because of me, only one person.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. Yeah. And they were like, wow, okay. That was a joke, although, but after that, every year, and I will try to be part of or organize one meetup to support or get more female or encourage more female to come into the data science space.
Yep.
At that time it was really hard because data science naturally is part of, if you think about the women in tech, is this much, and then data science in tech is smaller. So there was a moment back at AGL time. So the way I was doing that for every year, only one time. I think roughly one time with the data team. And then there was an event at AGL, if you remember the Lean In. There was a Lean In group. And so there was a talk there I noticed myself. And I said, well, if you like to go fast, which is I ran really fast. And if you want to go fast, go by yourself. Run by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. So I was already doing mentoring and try to help, as an individual again. So that was a moment where I think in another space, where it's a calling. So I say, look, I already started teaching different students and mentoring different people and help all these other people who came to Australia and trying to find a job, I was helping them. So, and then at that time, I said, look, I want to help more women to get into the data science and get into AI and get into data and analytics.
Yeah.
So there are two co-founders, and they say, Catherine, if you do it, and we do it together. So they pushed me. Actually, I will say thank you, and without them, I will not really form the Ada's Tribe. But there was years in build.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So there is a community-based approach.
Yeah.
We are literally say, look, I think the aim is to say, the motto is or say, share and learn.
Yeah.
So this time I put share first.
Yeah.
And learn second.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a reason. Yeah. And then say share is everybody share, not only me, because I cannot scale. So I already identify one of the obstacle if I continue doing myself within one organization, or not outside the community, not outside the one organization, because I can only help the female group in AGL or ANZ.
Yes.
So then this time I decided I will go beyond one organization. So this will be a community based. So we share and we learn.
And Adis Tribe's still going strong today?
Yes.
How many members are you kind of up to, and what does it look like?
We don't really count the numbers.
You're a data person. You must know.
Yes, and but I yes and no again.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't. I keep on telling people when I say we don't use that number as a KPI.
Okay.
We don't always track the number. So, but we do calculate the numbers of how many people are members, and because we are not a subscribed membership, right? And how many people came to our events, and we keep track, but we don't count the number, because unless you create the impact, otherwise we don't count that number.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so because I look at the end of the funnel.
Yeah.
So if they have heard about us, or they are far away from, they are not a regular attendee and to the meetup, and so even they came over here and one time, and then they found a mentor. Yeah. Or the one time they build their confidence, or they open their eyes and say, oh, actually, I'm from finance and I can do data science. Oh, actually, you know what? And so I'm a software engineer, and now I can work in AI.
Yep.
So then even at the one time, we don't count that person in our membership or the number, but the conversion rate or the impact is we know.
So impact is what you measure?
That's right.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So how would you, if you were to think about your achievements and impact, what does that kind of look like over the last few years?
Oh, I will say that every single event, or every single month, we will have people come to tell us they got a new job.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and so every single event, and then people will say, wow, this is incredible that we can do this. So then, so I think that is how we are measured.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, I think particularly in the world of tech, data, AI, a lot of these things, they weren't around 20 years ago, or as prevalent, let's say, whereas they're becoming so much more mainstream. Cybersecurity is the kind of current trend as well. And I think it's very hard for people to know how to transition into those jobs, what transferable skills they've maybe got from other industries, or say finance could be a transferable area, or software engineering. And I believe it's communities like Adis Tribe that help people to learn that, because otherwise, where else do you go? Where else do you look to get that information apart from kind of mentors? And so I think it's really admirable, the work you're doing. And I think it must be having a huge impact on people's life outcomes and job outcomes and kind of where they go next.
Oh, I have to say, well, we are very, very humbled and honored, and to keep Others Tribe, and we don't count the numbers, but for the not-for-profit, it's really hard, and also everybody is volunteer.
Yeah.
Everybody volunteering, and we believe what we do, and so that's absolutely we are a very nurturing environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are so glad, and now we're getting more and more leaders. Actually, we not only encourage people, say you can transfer into this field, and also if you look at the data now, let's say, so female, actually there are a large amount of graduates and from their the universities enter the workforce, but they have a big drop. There we can attract them, but we don't retain them. Yeah. So in the middle of their middle career stage, that is the part where it's the hardest part. So there is and so there especially we can see a lot of our community members, and either they face juggling different family and children, and also the work they want to transfer from individual contributor and to a different a leadership role, and so there are so many dimensions. And so it's still struggling. So in a way, that's why it's and even the harder. So we also have another group, and so how we're going to help more women become a leader, because you don't see what you can become, and you have less confidence. So that's why role model is so important.
It's hugely important.
It is hugely important, and especially in this field, it's really, really hard, and to stay and longevity.
I also saw that you've taken some non-exec and some advisory roles. So you work with the Environment Protection Agency, Make-A-Wish Foundation. I think I also saw that you've got advisory roles with Monash and Australian National University. So you're still keeping yourself fairly busy.
Yes. And also in the startup space.
That's right. Actually, you were saying here at the state library, you use the startup space here, which is fantastic. I guess what I was interested in within that is, how did you shift into that non-exec world? How did you? Because many people were interested at some point in their career at kind of pursuing those kind of opportunities. Was that kind of luck? Did you kind of fall into it, or was it something that you mindfully decided to direct yourself towards?
I think, again, I would say actually over my career, I really purposefully and think what I want to do. I haven't really thought carefully about each transition and which role do I want to go into. So it's what type of work do I want to do? So that was a motivation, and also so the transition for me actually was from the AGL time, and so I started working on more organizational level. So organizational level, and I got one stream of work was data governance. But actually the scope was way beyond the data governance. So that was the interest. I started working on data governance and expanded to the organizational governance, and then started looking at how we're looking at interaction of this is a finance part, and how you're managing, the actually as data is throughout the entire organization. And so because I worked with risk team often, so that how we measure the risks, and how we use data, and also look at our finance, and also what kind of operation model do we have. This is a bigger piece, right? And so bigger piece, and so there I studied a lot, and I started working, and then I think the benefit of what I have been doing with different startups. So different startups, and the Slate Group was one of these. Even the size is small, but running a startup, and you got to build every single thing. So it's a small organization, and still I learned so much of that. I spent it to say, look, I have been working as kind of exec role, and so leading a function, but I can see myself of connecting the dots, and having a bigger picture. So then I started volunteering in school councils. And having, say, look, this is the part how we're going to, I volunteered in 2 different school councils and the community. And so then I took on the advisory role and into different, roles as well, different organizations as well. So the next step, and plus I will study the AICD. And so that will help me to, as I mentioned, I'm very bookish, and it's because I like to learn with theory, and then how do I apply.
That makes sense.
So that's how actually started the transfer me into the non-exec role. So the EPA role of a non-exec role is after a few steps, and I went to the governance role, which is I work with not for-profit other tribe. We are an organization as well. So that is for startup, and also for the community based, and also for the the schools. So that's how I built the skills and the plus learning. Then I got opportunity over 2 years, and got onto the EPA.
It's fascinating. I think the story, or the theme rather, throughout your career is that transferability. You've kind of kept reinventing yourself. You've kept seeing opportunity from where you are, where you want to go. And it's interesting, I hadn't really thought about it before, but you're right, data touches every part of the business. So working in that world does give you exposure to move away from broad-based technology, let's say, into much more of a business kind of commercial. So it is probably a natural step, as you say. And if I reflect back now when we had the conversation with Darren Klein, and we were talking about how he kind of moved from commercial finance into data, it's because he had fundamentally understood the business and what the drivers were of the business. So it's just interesting that you've probably gone the opposite way around it to Darren, but you've still kind of nonetheless ended up in a very similar place.
I agree. So that is Darren and I, we chatted this before as well. Yeah. And so the path we took is the opposite. Yeah. So I would say that I had a job title as a technologist, and at one stage. So there is more from a tech background, and then but always is because I'm using the technology and I'm building the technology. However, the focus I was in a subset of the technology was on data, and so there I think with the analytics gave me the bridge where you got to understand and convert to action and into the business, and without knowing that, and you cannot really bring any meaningful so there is no meaningful output. And why you're using this piece of technology, that's always question I ask whoever like the organization I work with, why. What is the outcome we try to achieve?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you. I'm going to ask you a few questions a bit more broadly about your career now, if that's okay. What are you most proud of in your career?
Wow. I would say I'm also proud of myself. Build good teams. Yeah, and so I think that is the teamwork and the people who I work with and the team I built or I inherited again. We work together, we build it together, and also very productive and happy, diverse. This is the thing which is high, and naturally you lead the outcome, the work you deliver is from people.
It's really interesting because I did a poll on LinkedIn last week, and the poll asked the question, what causes you the most stress at work? And over 60%, close to 70%, off the top of my head, said other people. And then you kind of read a lot about people having their work best friend and the kind of connection. And I was reflecting a lot on this actually over the weekend, and I was thinking, work is more than just the productivity or the things that we achieve. It's the connection, it's the social connection, the human connection, and the people that we meet through that journey. And I just wonder, I'd love to get your opinion on this, kind of with this increase in remote working and hybrid working. Do you think there's a kind of risk of that human connection getting lost?
Yes, I agree. But can I actually add on something, which is you just talk about it, and this is so funny. On the way, actually, I was on the train from Richmond to Melbourne Central. I got a text message, and so there is from one of my previous team member, and the person, I will not mention the gender, and the person basically said this, and I just sent some email, and so the boss left, and please come to be my boss, and so let's build a team again. Yeah, and so that is like really, so that is now come from there, and then talk to answer your question about the remote work. And I think remote work is the connectivity and the productivity is really hard to measure, first of all. I myself and over the COVID and after the COVID, I feel, if there is a way of I can connect people face to face, I would definitely make the effort to do that. And a lot of teamwork actually come from being physically together. And so that is, if you physically together and you reach people easily, and a lot of people so-called people issue and can actually be resolved on the spot.
Yes.
And it was certainly harder. So for me to read another person through a screen is hard.
Yeah, very much so. That two-dimensional version, for whatever reason, is very hard to read. Look, I think probably the traditional ways of working are done, and we are kind of increasingly moving towards a hybrid model with that balance. But I think there's a lot of work to be done in leadership and business to make sense of the best way to make that work for everyone. And I think that's probably a challenge that is the current generation and next generation of leadership. Because it's not going away, and I don't think it should. I think there should be a bit more flexibility, because I think one of the benefits that you see, particularly from flexible working and hybrid working, is more opportunity for women, particularly where they tend to be the primary caregiver. It does give much more opportunity. So the return to office does put that at risk. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting, let's call it opportunity, not problem, that we've got ahead to figure that one out. Let's talk about you again. Do you have any career regrets?
Well, if I say no, I'm lying.
Yeah.
But can I say I don't like to regret?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, perhaps I like to rephrase that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's too many things I can learn from.
Yes.
Yeah, but the regret doesn't really help me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would say, well, many things, and I could have done differently, or a lot of things I learned, I could have learned early on.
Yeah.
But I learned later on, so means if you learn it now, and at that time, you didn't know, that's still, you are learning. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
that's right.
So that's why I say, if I will think about it I could learn early on or earlier, and let me say, the understanding of other people. I think I wanted to, and if you give me a second chance, I would spend a little bit more time to do that.
Yeah.
Especially teamwork. And so as I mentioned that, I like to work on multiple different things. You certainly find me in the jungle, right? Yeah. So I'm not only I jump from one to the other, and in the meantime, at the same time, I like to maximize the number of hours I work, and also I like to optimize the number of how much outcome I could deliver. Yeah. So which basically work multiple hours, multiple type of things at the same time, and also organizing in such a way to get maximum outcome.
Yeah.
So because of that, and I train myself doing things, you got to do fast, you got to be very organized, and you have to, to have a hard bar for, and then because I was doing that, and I expected other people to do the same.
Yeah, okay.
Was, I think, one of my, my boss. Actually, a very good piece of advice, and I say, Catherine, you slow down. So you also need to say, look, your team is good. You got to broaden the influence. and to say, look, you were able to, you do it. So I made a progress, and I say, look, I can do it fast. I taught other people. So this team is functional, hyper-functional.
Yeah.
And then you find, well, actually, you're going too fast. The whole organization is all the arms, and one arm cannot move without the other legs and limbs to move together.
Yeah.
So that's the part which is I should have learned, actually realized early. And so now I think that is one thing I learned through on the journey is how do I balance?
Okay.
How do I balance of the expectation from my own experience and understand what people's background and how do they work? And once you have this group, and how do you scale? Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something you kind of touched on there, and we talked about actually before we started recording, was that you're trying to consciously slow down.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Slow down. Okay. How that look like is, I think now we live in this digital world of everything is fast, and quick, more and more and more. So that is almost is everywhere. So I had a burnout occasionally, happened, right? Because I already had a tendency of doing extra, doing more, and eventually I learned the lesson about, through a really painful experience, and you burn out.
Yeah.
So at that time, and I say, and do we really, actually, what is the purpose? What are we trying to do? And then now, work with different team, and also look at, you look back what you have achieved, what you wanted to do, what is important for you. Mm-hmm. I literally noticed that I myself, and I'm not putting enough time to think because it's become a robot. So you continuously just do, next. And when you do next, and you multiple. So that is how, so now during one of the conversation, which is, my, the counseling situation, and I say, you got to start thinking of slow down in a way of you go to respond, not react. Because if only react, your instinct and biological, right? But if there is no thinking process, there is no transition from your thought, from your brain process into your action.
Yeah.
You just autopilot. So there become autopilot. What's the difference? So now it's so purposefully, and you got to think about it. So you got to slow down to create this head space. If we don't slow down, at least to me, if I don't slow down, I cannot give myself enough time to transfer, to think, and to respond.
Yeah.
So that's the part I think there is. I think this was a great advice I have received, and that is I have actually, think about it, how I deal with my with my teenagers and at home, and with people at work.
Yeah.
So it works. Yeah.
That's great.
So
this is also a protective measure for yourself, self-protection.
Well, how do you define the self-protection?
Well, self-nurturing in terms of resilience, and you say if you're constantly on the go and chasing and fast, and at some point you've got nothing left.
Yes, you're running on an empty tank.
And you have to replenish
yes.
and take care of yourself as well through that.
Yes. I think again, and then now is still when we were talking about or replenish and, the running on the empty tank, you take care of yourself. And will be, what's your value? What is your purpose? What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do at the end of the day, or what trying to do at the end of the quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard an interview recently with the American or Canadian sprinter Carl Lewis, who's very famous, I think, in the 90s. But he was talking about how his strategy when he ran a race was to run at 85% of his maximum ability. Because what he identified in the other runners is they came out the blocks at 100%, and they got maybe 70% through the race and had nothing left in the tank. Whereas he knew if he ran the entire race at 85%, he would win. And always having that little bit left in reserve, not always having to have your foot flat to the floor, was his secret to success. And I thought that was quite interesting, because there is a tendency to start every morning, turn on your computer, your laptop, whatever it is, and off you go 100 miles an hour, and it's a race till the end of the day. But there's probably not a lot left to you at the end of that day to enjoy life.
It is true. And I would say that's just a very interesting analogy. I was in the high school time. I like to run, and I stopped running, and now I need to do more. And my best friend, she liked to sprint. So there is every time she will be the first one, sprint the first 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after the second 100, and then she's almost done. And so that, if you ran for 800 meters and I finish my run, I still have to give her companion to keep going, right? And so, but my strategy at that time was I never ran as the lead. I always follow the lead. I always follow the lead, the first one or the second one. I will not allow myself to be, be the fourth place, because once you reach the fourth place, don't get any medals or anything. So you're going to have the first top three, right? Yeah. So 3 is, I quite often find myself the 3 is a magic number for me. And I follow the lead. And it's around the 80% or 85, 90%. And I reserve the energy. And hopefully, not every time, but I don't remember how many times, but I was able to actually pass the first one and then take the score, So, yeah, that's where it's always, if you follow, and actually energy efficient. If you follow driving on the road, and so they're driving on the road, and someone is a similar speed, and your fuel consumption will be better.
Yes, that's right. If you sit in the slipstream behind them.
That's right. And so mentally, actually, you were running behind somebody. You feel, I have a companion. I'm not really crazy. Nobody's around.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very interesting analogy.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's translatable into life. It is, I guess, the theory. You may have already answered this next question, actually, which is that I believe that we're shaped by the feedback that we receive. And I'm just interested in what's been the most significant feedback that you've received in your career.
Wow, this is another one. The reason I'm taking a pause, because your question is most significant.
Yeah.
So, I would say in my career, and the most significant advice was from my Ph.D. advisor. And although I didn't really follow exactly her advice, so her name is Catherine Lopes, and she's a vice chancellor at Emmbr Uni. And she is my PhD advisor, and so she always tells me, she says, look, you want to work with people in your career who appreciate the value you bring. So it's in translation, and you say, look, after a certain, so people it is an advice which is I give to people as well, is if you work with the people who see you, your value, and our confidence, believe in your ability to do things, and you certainly can make it.
Yeah.
And it's not only a job.
Yeah.
So that's called career and as a person. So, but always, it's hard for us to always find the person who you see you.
Yes.
Right? And so that's why we call quite often if somebody who can be your sponsor.
Yep.
Right? And the mentor give you the advice, and the sponsor will see things in you and also in the organization. Absolutely. And you get opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's, I think there is compared to if I see that and I try to seize the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to flip the tables now. So if you were going to give your singular piece of sage advice to the next generation, what would it be?
Oh. So I would say learn as much as possible from other people's path, but build your own career. Nobody will repeat another person exactly the same thing. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you learn, you try, you have your own path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you. I'm going to go completely off track now. This is my final question. You've described yourself multiple times in our conversation as liking books, which is also a passion of mine. And we are at the State Library, so I'm going to ask you, what's your kind of recommended read?
Oh, the recommended read. So now I'm reading a lot of. So now I'm reading a lot of books, and also two things which I'm passionate about. Mm-hmm. So that one is on AI.
Yeah.
The other one is on environment.
Okay.
So there are, the two things where you can very easy read, very simple read. So the environment one currently I'm reading, that is on the one which is the climate change. What can we? Mm-hmm. So it's a small, actions you can take.
Yeah.
It is not theoretical, not much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is something everybody can read. So for the AI, there's like way too many books to read, right? And because things are changing so fast. And I will recommend a book which is by Cathy, and then so that is, I should remember that. So it's about the mass disruption. So where is a bias? So there are AI bias.
Yeah. The
book, and I should go back to the book title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll dig it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they are, and the bias which is on the AI side, there is you're going to learn a little bit towards whether the gender as well, but it's a side product. So that's how I say the two things were, the area which I spend most of my time reading and try to learn more.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I think that we've covered so much ground. It's been really interesting to learn about your life and your journey, and the way that you've kind of navigated that, and the things that you've achieved as well. I did mean to say earlier around Ada's Tribe, I guess people can reach out to you if they're interested to learn more about that, and we will make sure we put up a link as well so people can connect with you. So look, thank you so much again for your time. You've been very generous with your time and your storytelling, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to Tales from Tech Titans, and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. If you'd like to get more insights about tech careers, then check out the Emmbr, that's EMMBR LinkedIn page for the latest updates, articles, and engaging discussions.